Well, I've gotten my penicillin shot. I hope all you have as well, because it's time to get under the covers with Pagan again. This is where we're covering cover songs by Mike Bilinski's musical juggernaut Pagan. We've done a couple of these so far, and really excited about the one tonight. It's Wouldn't It Be Nice by this, and I really appreciate how Pagan is reaching out to these up and comers, these folks that are, these Eric Claptons of the world or Black Sabbath or now the Beach Boys. And, giving them a little bump, helping them out a little bit, letting more people hear their music. So I think you should be complimented for that. So nicely
Thank
done.
you. It feels good to shine a light on these struggling artists.
That's right. Whatever you can do to help them, I'm sure they'll appreciate. But it is Wouldn't It Be Nice by the Beach Boys. Let's start out with why did you select this song?
So I'm a big Beach Boys fan. If somehow people aren't familiar with this show and this whole network, I talk a lot about the Beach Boys. I'm a huge Beach Boys fan. When This is the first song on Pet Sounds, which is my favorite Beach Boys album. And when I got into the Beach Boys, it was the album that I happened to choose to be the one to kind of be my entry point to it. So I knew who the Beach Boys were as a kid because growing up in the 80s, the Beach Boys had kind of already fallen because Brian Wilson was less and less involved at that point. Mike Love had spearheaded the live version of the Beach Boys for years. And that's really what they were. They were like a nostalgia touring act for boomers who were starting to get to that age of nostalgia in the 80s. But another thing that they would do is even though they weren't putting out albums with any kind of regularity anymore, they were doing a lot of movie soundtracks, whether it was licensing their music for movies or doing new songs for movies. Mostly it was a lot of their earlier, I'll say like novelty songs that they recorded when they were kids, songs about like surfing and cars, which is ironic because they didn't surf. And some of the members on those early records weren't even old enough to drive. They were literally kids when they made those albums. So, but a lot of that stuff was getting recycled at that time because of boomer nostalgia. So that was my introduction to it. And they would occasionally record new songs for movies. One of those blew up, and that was Kokomo. So that exploded around that time. I like Kokomo, but it still didn't like push me to go into the Beach Boys at all. For anyone who doesn't know, Kokomo is for a movie called Cocktail, which is a movie about TGI Fridays. And so the 80s were weird.
Yes.
So, they were also very prominent on Full House, the family sitcom, because star of that show, John Stamos, had been a touring member of the Beach Boys for years at that point. And they re-recorded one of their songs with him on lead for that show, and that became a big hit for them as well. So they were kind of having a resurgence at the time that I was old enough to kind of start getting into them, but I wasn't that interested. And somebody, I don't remember who, was like, no, you would really like the Beach Boys if you can skip over the first few records where it was more novelty pop song stuff and start Pet Sounds back kind of stuff, and you're gonna find a ton of stuff that you'll like weird, melancholic, baroque pop songs about hating life and things like that. And I was like, that sounds up my alley. Let's let's see what that's all about. And I didn't really know what baroque pop was at that time. And for anybody listening who doesn't know, it's when the lyrics and the music kind of don't mix. So the Beach Boys were great at this, and Wouldn't It Be Nice is a really good example of that because the song is kind of dark and melancholic in the lyrics, but it sounds super bright and poppy on a surface level until you really listen to the lyrics and get into it. And that, especially like, I was the perfect age for that to kind of really intrigue me, this idea of these two juxtaposed things. So as much as I love the Beach Boys and everything, like that song just immediately clicked for me. So that was my real entryway into the Beach Boys.
Gotcha. So obviously we're including a link to the song, and it'll also be the thumbnail at the end of the video as well. So there's several ways you folks can enjoy this. It's very good. I highly recommend you do. The cast of players are Mr. Bilinski on either a fish, a bass, or a bass, one of the two. So I'm assuming it was the latter. So
It
we'll
was
go.
both.
Oh,
I
both.
just, yeah, you
Ah,
can save space. You don't have to retype it.
excellent. Very good on that. Uh, Tape Bros on the piano. I'm assuming he's of the Pittsburgh Tape Bros. I don't know.
The
And,
Tapebroz dynasty.
yeah, and I think unrelated, Polina Faustova, who played cello on this. And
Yes.
I know you know yourself well, and so I expect that's why you were on a pagan thing. But talk to me a little too about Tape Bros and Polina.
So the so the idea of covering the song actually predates the cover project. My other band, the Rust Belt, when we were finishing up our full length self titled album, we were thinking of a couple extra songs. So the record label wanted us to put three extra songs on the album that weren't released as singles because our original idea was to release every song as a single, but they wanted us to, and then just have one held back. So this is some backdoor volleyball for everybody. The reason everything now is singles based again, ironically, like it was in the Beach Boys era. Uh, so what happens? The reason bands release so many singles before an album is you only can pitch to editorial for playlisting on all the major streaming services once per release. So if you release multiple singles, that gives you multiple shots at editorial playlists. So if you just put out a 10-song album, you get to pitch one song for editorial playlists. If you release six singles beforehand, you get seven shots at it because you get the six singles, then whatever song from the album once it comes out. So we were going to do nine singles and then the 10th song would be on the album release. But they asked us to hold three back for it. So we were thinking about doing like a cover song, and this was the song, and I'd already worked out the arrangement and everything for it. We got Tapebroz involved, and we worked out the arrangement for it. And then thinking about it though, is like, well, that defeats the purpose of what we're doing because the whole point with the Rust Belt was to kind of show off that we could write and play things that were outside of our normal wheelhouse. That was a big part of it because Rust Belt is really different than Pagan. So doing a cover just kind of seemed at odds with that, with why we were doing it. So I kind of backburnered this idea, and then once this came out, it was obvious pull this back out again.
And Polina?
So you know, if you're going to look for a cello player, so there is a woman who plays cello for Pagan, or had played cello for Pagan for a couple of years on the Session and Re-Up EPs. She plays on both of those. She We have not been able to get in touch with her. So I know that there's a lot of stuff going on. She is not from the U.S., and there was a lot of stuff that was going on in her area that she was dealing with. So hopefully she's okay and everything is good there. But she was not available. So we started looking around at who we could possibly have play cello on there. And it just so happens that Hans Zimmer's cello player, Paulina, was available. And that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
So
Again, giving somebody else a break, you
yeah.
know. So you just keep on giving. Yeah, but uh, like the arrangement, like the delivery of it, the execution, obviously, on the bass in particular, I thought was outstanding. But the cello stuff was okay too on that. So how exactly do Pagan and Beach Boys exist in the same universe? How does that happen? Is it just I think a little bit of your backstory that I think you may have kind of covered this already, but they don't seem like simpatico to me.
Well, so again, they have a lot of that Baroque pop stuff where the lyrics and the music don't necessarily mix. But if you separate the lyrics, and we had done a prisoner exchange playlist, you guys should go back and watch that, obviously. And you had brought up listening to the songs, you kind of had the same notes like the song is dark and introspective and melancholic. And so I mean that's recurring themes. Songs like I wasn't made for these times until I die is one of their songs. And so there's a lot of kind of like dark melancholic themes. They just juxtapose it with this kind of upbeat pop rock music. So if you took away the music and just added something darker to it, it would almost be like pagan songs in a way in that sense. So I think it's not obvious at first glance, but if you delve into their lyrics, I think there's a lot of similarities there. And as far as the arrangement, so wouldn't it be nice? Is a very busy arrangement, the original version. It's Brian Wilson playing 8,000 instruments and then his studio band backing him up. So there's tons of stuff going on. This is a really stripped down one. Um, there is actually a version of the song though that is just Brian Wilson singing and playing piano that was officially released. I can't remember if it was a B side on something or on a box set or something like that, but that version exists and it is slow, stripped down, just Brian Wilson singing and playing piano, and I love that version of it. So that was the jumping off point specifically for this one. But I didn't want just piano because I knew I wanted to do an instrumental. So the idea of doing cello with it, and then I played bass. What this is actually the song I play the least on so far at all of them because the bass part I just play. I basically play the crossover part. So it starts with just piano, and then I start playing bass when the cello kicks in, and then everything kind of levels out again. So I'm kind of the connecting tissue between the two parts of the arrangement. Um, I did a version where I play through the whole song, but it defeated the purpose of the kind of stripped down sound of it. So I had to kind of ego check myself and take a step back and be like, no, that doesn't actually, it sounds better with less of me. So toned it down. So this is the song I play the least on so far.
Good. What was your favorite part of making this cover?
It working because in my head, when the cello was going to kick in and the bass would connect them and stuff, in my head that sounded great. But until we were actually there and did it, I wasn't 100% sure that was going to work. So it was a relief, I should say. So that was nice. Like, oh, good, this works as good as I thought it did.
Cool. Very cool. So last question. Um, I'm a boy. I've been to beaches. I carry pagan. While I agree wholeheartedly, less of you is good. So that all works out great. Less of me, I think it hurts, and there's so much less of me. There's none of me in yet the third of the covers that we're talking about. Kind of wondering if that trend's going to change or not. Pretty sure it's not. Uh, what were you thinking?
I know you're a big Stamos guy, and Stamos didn't have any involvement in the band at that point. So I didn't want to insult you.
We are kind of a package deal, so that's fair. Okay, good. Well, I hope you folks have been enjoying these. We'll be dropping one of these each month, and let us know in the comments if you've had a chance to listen to what you think about it. Like I said, there's more coming. We would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the Bog Panda YouTube channel. Hit that bell; you'll be notified when new stuff goes out. And you may want to then poke around a little further in the Bogiverse and go to Bog Panda Vision, where we've got some micro homebrew games. And of course, you'll be able to listen to Hard No. It's the world's shortest podcast. Every episode's less than a minute. You have no excuse. And that's all I have. Anything from you, sir?
No, I will say though, for people like Kelly who are Stamos fans, Drumeo, which is a good channel on YouTube either way, but Drumeo posted like a half hour little mini documentary with him pretty recently, like a couple months ago, of them working with him to rework the Beach Boys drum solo for their live shows because he'd been playing the same solo for a few years and he wanted to change some things up. So it was showing that process of how they work that to the actual from the ideas that he had for it to the actual first time performing it, which is a really good video.
Excellent. We'll try and include a link to that as well in the description. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bog, Panda.